Jessica, it's so good to have you joining me on the podcast today. Thanks so much for being here.
Yay, yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, Robin.
Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this conversation because obviously, you've been building your jewelry business, Jazali Designs, for a couple of years now.
hmm
And so I'm really excited for you to come on and just share the lessons that you've learned on this journey because I know there's been ups and downs and just a lot going on and a lot of
Yeah.
balancing. And I think a lot of listeners are really going to resonate with that. And this is obviously also an extra special episode because you have been a part of the Jewelry Business Academy for a couple of months. I think it's coming up for 8 months now.
hmm
So I know you and your business really well. And I do know that your story is really going to inspire a lot of women out there who are working in the corporate world, working corporate jobs, and wanting to build their jewelry business on the side. So before we dive in, do you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little bit of your background?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So my name's Jess. I live in Vermont. I grew up here and, traveled over and went to college outside of state, but found home here in Vermont and love it here. I started making beaded jewelry, honestly, back in 2016. So it's been a second, but didn't really take it seriously until maybe like 4 years ago. And then, like, as time has progressed, I'm taking it more and more serious, especially since joining the academy. So, yeah, I think for me, it's been my style has evolved over the years, and I've kind of found what works for me and for me and my customers, what styles they kind of vibe with, and what feels good to me to make, and connects well with my lifestyle. It's definitely, like you mentioned, and we can get into it, but it's definitely a balancing act between trying to run a little small business on the side of working full time.
Mm. Yeah. And so I do definitely, there's a couple of things I want to dive into here. But the first thing I just want to quickly touch on, Jessica, is like, why a jewelry business? Like, why were you drawn to starting a jewelry business? And in particular, like the beaded jewelry, I'm just looking at your earrings right now. Like, they're so gorgeous, but there are a
Thanks.
lot of detail and there are a lot of work. And like, what was the draw to it?
Yeah. Great question. I don't know if I've been asked this before, but my aunt actually, she doesn't as much anymore, but she would make me and my sister these like gorgeous beaded necklaces when we were kids. I was probably a teenager and thought they were the coolest things. They had all these different layers of different color beads, different size beads. They incorporated, not just beads either. And I was so drawn to like how much of a feeling they gave me when I put them on when I put the necklace on. And then she started getting into earrings. And it was like the one thing, usually birthdays, the one thing I looked forward to every birthday was, oh, am I getting a pair of earrings from my aunt? Again, just like the feeling that as soon as I put the necklace or the pair of earrings on, how I felt wearing them and like walking around with them. Like it was so, it's kind of an undescribable feeling. It's just like an accentuation of your outfit or what you're wearing, but you can turn heads with a statement pair of earrings or a statement necklace and just feeling beautiful in them. So that's what got me started. I was like, okay, how do I make this necklace or this pair of earrings? And so she essentially taught me, and I started exploring from there. Then I started looking at other jewelry makers who were incorporating beads in their work. And as I learned like different weaving techniques, I loved just sitting down, and whether it was like YouTube or, following a pattern, learning how I could incorporate that with whether it was like hardware or different materials. And it it even though it took me forever, I think it made the feeling that much better when I had the finished product. And I could put them on and say like, oh my God, I made this. Like it took me a while, but I learned so much. And it's almost like had more meaning
Mhm.
as a finished product. So I started, I actually started, yeah, I started earrings, and then I also was making beaded wrap bracelets, which is a very like, a lot of people know about beaded wrap bracelets, but um, people were drawn to them. I think like all the different variety again of materials or colors or different types of beads that could be incorporated into one piece was just different and unique. Not everyone is drawn to it, but yeah, I think it was just a fun and different style. And it, I mean, I had friends and family start to buy jewelry from me. And so I was like, oh, okay, this seems like people really like my, essentially my art in jewelry form. So that's when I started kind of thinking through, oh, well, this maybe is something that I could share with more people and that they would like too.
Mm. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's something that you said there that I just want to touch on, which was how bringing those pieces of jewelry to life, like seeing them through to completion, makes it even more kind of fulfilling and meaningful. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
did a whole podcast episode on this a couple of weeks ago, where I talk about one of the reasons. I don't know if you have ADHD or if you're open to talking about,
Probably.
but a lot about you guys know a lot of my clients have ADHD, and specifically for people with ADHD, I have ADHD as well. Um, being able to see projects through to completion and seeing it physically come to life is incredibly fulfilling and rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think I just love that you shared that, because I think jewelry having a jewelry business is such a unique business, in that it's like, it's actually, there's not a lot of businesses where you physically bring a product to life like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is so rewarding, it is so fulfilling, it is so meaningful. And then yeah, I love that you started selling your pieces, and they are absolutely gorgeous. And one thing I just want to talk about, if you're okay with this, Jess, is your pieces are obviously, they are made with really fine little beads. They require a lot of labor and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time and a lot of energy. And I know we had this conversation, I think 8 months ago, where it was like, well, can I actually build a good business with pieces
Mm-hmm.
that are, they require a lot of time, they require energy. Like, how much are people really going to be willing to pay for these pieces of jewelry? And I feel like you have very much shifted your mindset over the past few months, in terms of like, yeah, you know what, this is viable. This we are growing. I'm seeing like potential here. And I'm seeing that, hey, like you were just sharing, you've done these events and you thought people were going for like the cheaper things, and they're not. They're going for like the gorgeous
Mm-hmm.
pieces that you're wearing, which
Yeah.
are at a higher price point. And
Yep.
um are you open to talking just a little bit around that? Because I definitely know we have some listeners who think of what they're making, and maybe in their own mind, they've just kind of written it off, that there's no way this could ever be a viable business, just
Yeah.
because of the materials they're working with or how labor intensive their pieces are.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm happy to chat through that. Yeah, I mean, like you said, when I started making these, I think I was drawn to it, like making these bigger pieces that did take a lot more time. Because again, the like meaning making from it was that much more impactful after the piece was made. Um, I was always worried about, you know, is someone gonna is someone gonna buy these for $100? Like, and thinking about myself too, like, ooh, I don't know if I would. But then I started, I mean, I think maybe some folks can resonate with this too. A little side note is we're all in this like artist maker small business community, and I think we're drawn to other people's businesses, especially when it's like art driven, and we can appreciate it that much more. So that's what I was doing when I was, looking for a new statement pair of earrings. I started to be drawn towards the effort and energy and time that went into the pair, and I did start to think about it more, and the price point. And I say this sometimes when I'm like looking at, uh, community members in the artist world, and like, you should bump up your pricing. Like that, I don't think this reflects, I think that's a hard conversation, but it's definitely not a concentration of mine anymore because I can see the value. I know what goes into it. It's definitely hard. It's been hard to get to this point because I think it does ebb and flow with styles and seasons and things like that. But yeah, I think also the culture around like fast fashion and, sustainability and small business appreciation, like all of those things kind of, filter into someone's decision to purchase whatever product that's going to be in their life moving forward. And I think that's kind of helped me to, stand strong on continuing to make a big statement pair of earrings that may cost a little bit more, but is going to make someone feel, XYZ, and it's going to last them however many years moving forward. And that price is, it, I was going to say is reflective of it, but, it probably not still today.
Mm.
But I think that helps someone, consider making a purchase with you or not. And if you feel confident and, um, you stand strong on that and you know the value that you're providing to a potential customer, then I think that's what matters.
Yeah, what's coming to mind is the word conviction. It's when you have conviction in that what you're bringing, um, you have that conviction in your price and your product and the value that you're giving your customers, and you don't start with conviction. You build that with time, and
Mm-hmm.
you start by leaning into like upping your prices, but almost I've never seen a jewelry business owner charge over pricing their jewelry. I've only seen people underpricing. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
listening to this and you're like, I wonder if, well, the fact that you're wondering tells me that potentially you are underpricing. And as you said, Jess, it all comes down to like, you know, looking at the value, making sure you're not at your resentment price as well.
Yeah.
And then just being really confident in that and accepting that it's not going to be for everyone necessarily, but the
Mm-hmm.
right people won't bat an eyelid. The right
Right.
customers, and there's an abundance of customers out there for every little niche and every little market. Like you said, especially now with just people moving away from fast fashion into more ethically produced, sustainable pieces, supporting small businesses, all of that. So there's always a market for that. So thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. And now
Yeah.
I really would love to talk about your, I don't want to use the word balance because balance kind of implies equal parts, and there's nothing equal about the distribution of time and energy with your business and your full-time job and just life in general. But
Mm-hmm.
how have you integrated building a jewelry business on the side while working a full-time job? And are you comfortable talking just briefly about your role at the moment in your job? Because I think it's
Sure.
really interesting. I believe you're marketing manager at the moment, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I would love to just touch on this as well because we have a couple of marketing managers in the JBA. I
Yeah.
don't, we have a couple of members in there. We also have people who've owned their own like design agencies and companies and stuff in there. And what is interesting is I talk to a lot of jewelry designers all the time who sometimes feel like, oh, but I do this for my corporate job. Like, for example, you do marketing for your corporate job. How have you found that, like, coming into the JBA essentially, like, how is using your marketing skills in your jewelry business, how has that kind of played a part? And did you at one point feel any guilt, like, hey, I should know exactly what to do because this is my job in the corporate world? And what was like the difference in the jewelry industry? Because I've had this conversation with so many people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Great questions. Yeah, I started this position back in September, and it kind of just like, it almost feels like with my experience owning a little small business, um, was a perfect fit for me. Essentially, my job is to help support and uplift businesses in the community. Um, and a lot of it is around like marketing strategy and different marketing techniques. And, I'm exploring for the department too, different marketing strategies and advertising for itself as well. So um, we also work, and I mentioned small businesses, but we often work with a lot of different artists, vendors like myself. There's artist markets that we put on, and essentially those would be the ones that I'm also vending at.
Mm.
So it's been a really nice mesh of um, uh, roles and community building. I would say since joining JBA, there have been times where the different things that I learned with JBA, I wouldn't have known, or I wouldn't have learned about if I wasn't a part of the academy, and they helped me in my full-time job. That has happened probably a countless number of times. So that's really fun because I can like go into work and be like, I learned all these things from a call last night, and I can help other. What's great is I can sit down and connect with other makers or artists or small businesses and reflect some of those learnings and suggest some of those, whether it's techniques or whatever it may be, marketing strategies. And so that's really fun. On the other side, there's definitely been a few things. I mean, again, I'm new in the role, but there've been a few things that I've learned in my full-time job that's a nice reflection and translation to the jewelry business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's definitely, I feel like I'm fortunate because I love my job and I love doing jewelry on the side too, but it's I think it does ebb and flow. It's like I think of writer's block, like that definitely happens to me from time to time, but I'm so intertwined with social media and marketing and small business and building brands and building a small business that it's always at the forefront of my mind. I'm always thinking about, what I should be posting about on social media or what email I should be sending. And it goes both ways too, but we can dive a little bit more into that. But it's been really fun, and I feel really fortunate to be in a position where I'm like really loving what I do on both sides.
Yeah, it's really special to have two things that you love. And I think having a job that you love is also, and that energizes you. I can just tell from the way that you talk about your job that it like energizes you and lights you up as well, same way that your business does.
Yeah.
And having a business and a job that overlaps in so many areas is so great because I'm sure it keeps your focus on like the same things. I mean, you're marketing for your business and for your job, and similar platforms, similar approaches. So I think that is definitely a massive win.
Hmm.
And I'd love to know like how you have managed the two though, because even though we love them both, it still comes with its own challenges. So
Definitely.
can you talk to us a little bit about how you've kind of managed this juggling act? Because I know we are just talking about like, sometimes you can't do all the things and something has to kind of be put on hold, and that's often going to be the business because obviously the job does come first. So how have you navigated that? And do you have one piece of advice for someone listening who is wanting to build their jewelry business while working in their full-time job and just is struggling a little bit with how to manage their time?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I Again, it ebb and flows, and I think it's always like a learning process, right? You may be in a position where you start really early for your job, and then when you get home, you're exhausted, or vice versa. So I think being able to find routine is what's helped me the most, especially like making sure to get a workout in because that is just honestly so important, and I have to keep telling myself that if I get a workout in the morning and by the time I'm home, like I'm still energized. I'm not, I don't want to hop on the
Mm.
couch or like pour a glass of wine. It's just different. So I think that's probably really important. That I would recommend, routine, and then making sure to get active and, expend some energy so that your body is earning energy too for you to put back towards your business at a later point in time. But I also like to remind myself to, like, essentially give myself grace, and uh, I mean, being able to not beat yourself up if you don't get to a post, or if you didn't get to work out. I think being able to just like relax for a day, or say it's going to be okay, you'll kick ass tomorrow.
Mm.
um, but for me, with balancing or finding time for both, I think over time with my new position, again, I'll like work out in the morning, and usually like I'm on the elliptical. So I what I'm getting at is trying to find opportunities to do some of the things that you normally couldn't with your business, that you can at that point in time. So for me, like, I'm on the elliptical. Okay, I can pull up my phone and maybe like schedule a post, or I can
Mm.
put together a reel. Or, if I plan to get to work early, I'm sitting in my car and scheduling a post or writing out a caption. So finding those opportunities where you can essentially keep moving ahead in your business, and maybe it's those little like streamlined tasks that you normally can't find time to do, finding the time to do it. I had another uh, thought that I'm forgetting about, but yeah, I think just essentially, again, building routine in your day to day, and finding a minute or two. It really doesn't take that long, and I think we talk about this all the time. If you have photos on your phone, like, reuse them. As long as they perform well for you, but like reuse content. And I think we all have it at our fingertips. It's just sitting down and doing it. It really doesn't take that long.
Mm.
Um, I I love to work on the weekends, like in the morning time with a cup of coffee. And I know you always talk about sitting down with a cup of tea. Um, that that's always really fun for me. It's a relaxing time in the morning where I don't really have to think about much. Maybe it's like scheduling an email or working on a product. Oh, and I remember now, the other thing is podcasts, especially yours.
Mm.
Driving to work, like, that's an easy one where you're learning and thinking about your business at the same time, maybe getting energized, using that time as an opportunity to keep learning about the business, like think creatively, when normally maybe you'd be listening to music or not doing anything, but you can use that time again to put energy back into your business. So I think it's a learning curve. I know there's like hard days but good days, but as long as you have some sort of a routine to go back on, yeah, and then like do as much as you can with the time that you have, whether it's carving out 5 minutes at lunch, taking a walk, sitting on a bench, and just like making sure you get that post done. um, yeah, I think, yeah, consistently thinking about it and just trying to work towards it every day.
Mm. This is so good, Jess. I love everything that you shared there. And I think the one thing, obviously, is that you were sharing about your routine and getting movements every day. And I can't tell you guys like how game changing it is. And this is like, I struggle with it sometimes as well. And I find if I go and do anything gym or
Hmm.
movements or like personal related too late in the day, I feel guilty and I shouldn't feel guilty, but I do. I don't know what it is. It has to be like early morning. Otherwise, I feel guilty still to this day. And it's like something that you have to reframe because on the days when I say to myself, you don't have time to go to the gym, you need to do work. I can tell you by the end of the day, sometimes when it's like 9 p.m. and I've had back to back meetings and calls all day, and I haven't allowed myself to just go to the gym for 2 hours in the morning,
Hmm.
you start resenting your business. And
Hmm.
that's a bad, bad place to be. And so remembering that you are the most important part of your whole business, you, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit. Like, and you need to do whatever you need to do to nurture yourself and look after yourself and refuel yourself and re-energize yourself. And yeah, some days it's going to gym, some days it's sleeping in, whatever it is that is going to work for you best. And I know you were saying how, some days it doesn't always go to plan. And
Mhm.
one of the key traits of successful entrepreneurs is having flexibility. And if you think of like people who are very rigid in the way they deal with life and business and stuff, when things go wrong, it's like emotionally they can't deal with it.
Mhm.
When you are a very flexible person and you learn to practice being flexible in business and in life, when when things go wrong, when challenges come up, when maybe you didn't get to the gym or maybe things aren't kind of falling into place like you hoped they would be, you're able to adjust and move and pivot and flow with it, kind of like a tree dealing with strong winds. You're able to just like bend over a little bit and move with the wind instead of just snapping and
Yeah.
breaking. And I think that flexibility, having routines, having structure, and then being flexible when things go wrong is so, so key. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you're doing a lot of habit stacking, and I am a huge fan of habit stacking. So for anyone who's listening who's like, what is this? It's when you take things that you're already doing every day. Like Jessica has her coffee in the morning, you go to the gym, you driving, you're already doing those things. And all we're doing is stacking key tasks in your business that are going to keep building momentum in your business onto those tasks. So it becomes an easy, effortless, fun association and it just gets done then every single day. So I really love that advice, Jessica, and thanks so much for sharing. And I hope that I know this is going to help somebody who's kind of struggling with that because it is hard. But you can find those little moments. And one thing I'll also say, when you said that you do a lot of your content posting from the elliptical, whenever I go on the treadmill or I go for a walk, content like flows to you.
I
I don't
know.
know what it is about when you're moving, when you're walking, it just comes so much easier than when you're sitting at home being like, okay, I have to do this now. So yeah,
Yeah,
I I
it's so
love
true.
that. So I'd love to chat a little bit about your experience of being in the Jory Business Academy. But before we even talk about the academy, can you think back like 8 months ago? I think it's almost 8 months, not quite, seven
Yeah.
and a bit months ago. Um, just before you signed up and joined the Jory Business Academy, do you remember how you were feeling back then? Like, what sort of situation were you in? What challenges were you facing at that time in your business?
I know, 8 months. I feel like so much has changed, like, so much has in such a good way. Before, let me think, whoa, like, I feel like so much has happened since then that I can't even remember what life was like before JBA. Um,
Ah,
but like, I was on Etsy and I was on Instagram and Facebook, and that's really all I was doing. I feel like I was just a fish, like, flopping on the sand, just not really having a strategy. I knew how social media worked, and I tried to be pretty active. Like, I was definitely in front of the camera. Definitely not as much as I am now, but yeah, I think I wasn't really thinking long term, futuristically. I think I was looking for a little bit more of like, how can I prioritize my efforts here? What are my goals? Like, I didn't even think about collections and trying to reach out to consignment shops or retailers and thinking about growing in different avenues, both online, in person, and shops with events. Like, I don't, maybe some of that crossed my mind, but I don't think it was, I never like sought after the opportunity to like structure it.
mm,
Um, and so, yeah, when JBA came in front of me, I think it was like, oh yeah, I think this might be the greatest opportunity for me to kind of like hone in. And I think anyone can really like do it, but I think that's what the community is for. It's it's like a built out resource, and like one-on-one attention, and daily interactions and people who are going through the same things as you, um, every single day. Like that is so valuable. So yeah, again, when it like came across my plate, it was kind of a no-brainer. And I think it was kind of like what I was looking for. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. I love hearing that. And I know this is a long time ago, so maybe you don't remember, but was there anything that made you almost not sign up? I'd be curious to know.
Um, uh, Maybe a mix of, to be honest, the price and the commitment from on my end.
Mm.
And I've got a feeling you have a follow-up question, so I'm gonna skip ahead. And it's what? So it's only been I started in September, so it's only been 8 months.
Mm.
8 months? 6 months?
I think we're at 8 months.
Okay. Um, so I would say like it's been worth it, 100%, 110%. Like
Mhm.
again, I wouldn't have even known that. And I will be honest to those who are listening, like I could be putting in, I should be putting in more effort. I since I'm so busy and working full time, like I'm usually listening to the calls that are recorded, so that I'm, keeping caught up and checking the community page. But even that, like even me not being 100% involved has been worth it for me to be, yeah, like straight up. So I the other thing was commitment. And again, like I struggle with that for sure, but I've been able to, like we talked about, build out routine and build out schedule and like figure out like how much time I should be focused on one thing versus another based on what my priorities are at the time. And before, I didn't even know like what my priorities should or what I wanted them to be.
Mm.
So it really has taught me a lot. Yeah, and 8 months in, like I'm really happy with where I'm at right now. It's definitely been worth it, and yeah, I've yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm just happy that I'm happy the community came across my plate because yeah, it's been worth it and really valuable for me.
I'm so happy to hear that, Jess. And I love that you shared, that, yeah, you haven't been maybe 100% showing up in the way that you would like to because you have life going on. And
Hmm.
that's the case for a lot of our members. I mean, life is never straightforward. Everyone has like different things. Some people are able to be full time, some people have jobs, some people have kids. Like, there's always things going on,
Yeah.
and you've just still, I would say, you have 100% committed with the time and energy that you have to showing up for your business. And so I'm so glad that you've had that experience. And I'd love to know, what would you say is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned since joining the JBA?
Whoa. Good
Putting you
question,
on the
Robin.
spot.
Yeah, for real. God, I don't even know if there is one thing. Well, yeah, actually, maybe. And actually, I don't know. The one that stands out to me is like being a consistent, like essentially player in your business, showing up consistently. And that does, for me, off the top of my head, two things. It shows your commitment to your business, and doesn't your business doesn't your business deserve commitment? If
Mhm.
you're gonna go for it, then like give it your all, right? So showing up consistent day to day. And again, like maybe, yeah, you need a day off. That's totally fine. But also to your audience. So yeah, in today's world, that means on social media, on email, in events, getting across to your customers, your potential customers, and letting them know, your business is still here, um, and sharing the value of your product with them.
Mm. Yeah, you know what? That's so big. And we were talking about that on one of our calls yesterday. I don't think you were on that one, but it's, about being known. People can't buy from you unless they know that you
Yeah.
exist and your jewelry's out there. So I
Yeah.
think that's a great lesson. And what would you say has been like one of your favorite parts of being in the Jewelry Business Academy? Like, what would you say you've been enjoying the most?
I think the community, I think that's huge. It's just like really underrated, but along with the community, is well, everything that goes with the community. So like if we're posting to the Facebook or we're on a group call, like again, everyone is going through maybe a similar experience to you. We're all jewelry makers, so that's a huge connection to start with. And we're all trying to progress and achieve our goals, whether they be different or not. And so we're kind of like a big group of cheerleaders for each other. And that's really special and meaningful. But I would say also the attention that you give to the community is huge. If I throw in a question or a concern or whatever it may be in the group, I know I know I'm gonna get a response from Robin.
Mm.
And I know I'm gonna be headed in the direction after that. So that's very relieving, and again, just impactful for, if you can't always like go and ask your mom or go and ask your neighbor or go and ask maybe just another artist in the community. Of course, you're going to gain different perspective and value. But if you have someone who's been in the industry before and been practicing this work and has been giving feedback and advice to makers for, I don't even know, Robin, however many years you have, that's like next level. And so I think for me, like that's what I've looked so much forward to day to day, is if I have a question or I have a concern or I have a great new idea, getting your responses, yeah,
Mm.
is the thing for me.
Oh, I love that so much, Jess. And for anyone who's listening who isn't too sure like what we're talking about, we have a incredible Facebook community where all our JBA members are. And to be honest, when I started the Facebook community, you never know if people are going to show up and use it because it's like one of those things where not people don't even use Facebook anymore.
Right.
But the Facebook groups, I absolutely love in our community. Like you guys just show up every single day. Like there are questions in there every day. And I love going through them. I love like answering. I do answer every single question as
Yeah, you
well.
do.
And everyone else is so supportive of one another as well. And they're sharing their resources and suppliers and
Hmm.
helping one another and lifting one another up and celebrating one another. So I'm really glad to hear that. And could you quickly touch on, just because I know we have people listening who maybe haven't been on group calls before, or they've been on group calls that are maybe run a little differently. I know everybody runs their calls differently, which is totally fine. And I know you don't come to a lot of live calls. You watch the recordings. And I know some people will think, oh, but there's no value in that.
Mm.
Can you share what your experience has been? Because we do get some people who feel, or maybe they've been on other programs and other kind of group calls and they're just structured differently. So what's your experience been of that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, again, honestly, like it's definitely hard to fit the calls in my schedule. Robin provides two different opportunities throughout the day, and so the evening time is best for me. But when I don't make it, all the recordings are up online for us to view after, refer back to, and even the takeaways are included, which is huge. So you can go through and be like, okay, yeah, this one's going to provide a lot of valuable for me. But really, like um, at the beginning of this year, I was just watching them one after another on my way to work because that's the best time for me. I have 25 minutes in the car and I can get through, or even on my walks with the dog.
Mm,
So they always provide to me. And if it's something maybe I've heard in a way before, it's just a gentle reminder that like, oh yeah, that's on my list and I need to give that a little bit of attention, or like, oh yeah, that's actually a new perspective or idea that was talked about before, but I hadn't heard like the specifics of this before. So
mhm.
um, yeah, I've never had an instance where I listened to a call and haven't like walked away being like, that was a waste of time ever. Like that's never
That's good
happened to
to
me.
know.
So,
That's good to know.
yeah, no, and everyone has like the different, things that they're going through in their business at the time. And Robin gives feedback and suggestions, and it's definitely like one-on-one conversation based. And then everyone also pitches in like thoughts and their feedback too. And you always walk away with learning something new, or at least a reminder to get your act together and go work on your emails, or, go add that new tidbit that you learned in the call to your day to day.
Mm. I love that so much, Jess. Thank you for sharing. And I'm not paying Jessica to say this, guys. But last quick question just about the program, because I know we'll probably have some people listening who are kind of on the fence, thinking like, you know what, I do want to maybe consider joining. But maybe they're where you were 7 or 8 months ago. Or maybe they're just getting started and they're like just on the very beginning stages of their business. Like, what would your advice be to them if they're thinking of joining and they're just feeling a little nervous about it?
hmm well, your podcasts are huge. So like starting there and just, I mean, I don't know how many you have up right now, Robin, but I, I don't actually think I started there. Like I just like jumped right in.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that if you're on the fence and like, a bit about the community, and, start listening to the podcasts again. Like the same as the group calls, like they always provide feedback, or they always provide, valuable, um, content for me and takeaways and suggestions. So starting there, and then, I know Robin, I think you can like sit down one-on-one to get a bit more of a deep dive, but,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course your social media. You're very active. You give a lot of free, right? Free
Mm.
advice on social. So yeah, the social and the podcast is, spend some time with that, learning about, Robin and, the offerings that JBA provides. Yeah, I think you'll be making a decision quickly.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's kind of like our taste test of the podcast and social media, and making sure that our clients still get value from the podcast as well is
Yeah.
also pretty important. So, thank you for sharing that, Jess. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that we haven't spoken about? I know we are at time. Do you have like 2 more minutes?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I I have actually been told a few times. I don't do a lot of events throughout the year, but I have been doing more since JBA. And they they're just such a great community builder. So if you're not doing them, or thinking about it, I think starting somewhere, maybe with like a holiday time frame one, or something around, something that's approachable for you. The community building is so fun. Like not only do you get to sell your work, talk about your work, but, you get to meet people and meet your community,
Mm.
and, um, it's just a fun kind of activity, and it's rewarding too. You can walk away and be like, "Oh my God, I met all these people and they complimented my jewelry," or some people bought some earrings, or whatever it may be. Um, that's always a fun one. And I was going to say something else. Oh, yes. I love connecting with other makers and artists, and in my community here in Vermont. And after being in JBA, I hadn't gotten this before, but after being in JBA and the work that I put in, I've heard from a few folks that are like, when they ask, "So you do jewelry full time?" And I say, "No, actually, I work full time. This is just what I do on the side." They are like kind of astounded, and they don't know how I like find the time or the energy to do it. And I think that's a reflection of, well, JBA, but also of the work that I've been putting out. But essentially, what I'm saying is that it's possible.
Mm.
Um, it's definitely possible. And I think there's opportunity to find balance, and you can do it. It just takes time, and you learn and grow. But yeah, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, I love that so much. I always say to people to look for evidence of somebody doing what it is that you're wanting to do. And you're that somebody for a lot of people who are listening, who are maybe thinking, like, is this possible for me? Can I make this work? And Jess is proof that yes, you can. You can.
You
You
can.
can make it work. You can
Yeah.
build this business of yours. And I think that's such an incredible compliment. And it just shows how well you're balancing this as well, and how well you're showing up in your business, that it looks full time, because you are very consistent, and getting that outside feedback is really incredible, especially from other makers who understand the behind the scenes of building a
Yeah.
business. And one thing I forgot to ask you, Jess, is don't know how I missed this, but like, do you want to share any wins, big or small, that you've celebrated over the past like 7 or 8 months?
Sure. 7 or 8 months. Yeah, I think, well, yeah, when I started jumping back into events, this is a win for me just because I never really, jumped right into events as much as I did since joining. And I attended I vended at a few holiday markets, and like, whoa, that experience was pretty eye-opening. The holiday markets here in Vermont are very populated, and they're fun, and they're just like magical, and it was such a great experience. And I walked away meeting so many people, and I actually made I made a lot of money. And that was really surprising to me, seeing people purchase my work, um, like over and over and over again. I was just really proud of myself. So I think that's definitely a win. Um, I I opened I opened a website. I was on Etsy, as I mentioned before, and I got on Shopify, and now I have my own website. And whoa, like 6 years ago, would I ever think I'd have my own website of the jewelry that I make? Probably not. So I think that's a huge win. And then um, one last one is just a reflection of consistently showing up, specifically on social and I guess email too. Um, I just had a winter collection I think I released it in February. And I had actually never sold out of a collection before. And I tried something new. I made a new style of earring, all winter themed. And I pushed out, a handful, not a lot, but just a handful of emails to my audience that I had been growing from those holiday markets. And I gave those subscribers like first time access, and I almost sold out with the first time access. But once I released it to everyone else, I sold out. So that was also a win for me. And yeah, was proud of myself for that one.
I remember you sharing that. That is a massive win.
Yeah.
And I think what's so interesting about that, Jess, is, I mean, we were talking about this before. So we have a mini launch template for anyone who's listening, and I think you were following that. Am I correct?
Hmm.
But we have different versions of it, and you really did the smallest version of that
Yeah.
possible, like
Yeah.
the lowest effort version possible. And to sell out based on that is really incredible. It's because you've been so consistent as well in your business and showing up,
Hmm.
and obviously the designs are gorgeous. But yeah, that's a massive win. So
Yeah.
congratulations. And
Thanks.
yeah, I really love that so much. This has been so much fun, Jess. I realized there's so much we could have talked about. Like, I really wanted to touch on Etsy as well, but we'll bring you back on, and we'll do another update in a couple of months and hear all your wins and growth and challenges and everything that you've navigated. But thank you so much for being here, and for sharing your journey so openly with all of our listeners. And I know we're going to have people feeling really inspired by your journey and wanting to reach out and connect with you and follow along on your journey. So, where can our listeners find you, and how can they support you?
Yeah. So a little bit of a funky name, but it's Gisali Designs, and Gisali is spelled Jeshali Designs. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, definitely happy to connect with anyone who's like trying to think through the balance, or just wants another ear. Happy to connect with anyone.
Amazing. And we'll link those all in the show notes. So you guys can go and click and go directly to Jess's Instagram and website. But yeah, this has been so much fun, Jess. Thanks again so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Robin.